And you're very welcome to another episode of the League of Ireland podcast here on League of Ireland Women's podcast here on Final Whistle.ie. It's episode 9 of season 4, and we're revisiting one of our older guests on the podcast. Of course, we'll be joined shortly by Danny Murphy, the Cork City manager. Lots to chat to him about for one of those, I suppose, the promising sides of the season this year compared to previous years. There's really been a big uplift despite last weekend's result against Treaty. We won't talk about that too much, I promise you, Danny, but we will be chatting about their start of the season. 2 wins in their first 6 games gives them 7 points, and they sit mid-table. Aaron, I'm excited to talk to Danny because he's always a great interview. He's always he speaks in the cuff. So your thoughts? My start there for the weekend. Well, first of all, welcome back to another week. We're both still alive. That's a good start.
Still alive. I actually managed to catch so much football this weekend, actually live. Either catching bits of games here, left, right, and centre. I actually quite enjoyed the weekend of football. Let's start Treaty Cork. For me, it wasn't a 3-0 game. It wasn't a 3. I didn't think it was a 3-0 game, and I think Danny will probably say it himself. The way the defence sort of fell apart for some of the goals, he'd be disappointed. Like they had their chances. They started the game quite well. I think realistically, if Cork could have taken one of the early chances, it could have been a different game. But I think what we saw on Saturday was actually quite an enjoyable game of football. You know, from two sides, we've seen two sides who are probably 2 or 3 steps above where they were last year. Like I know I tweeted out over the weekend, Treaty now have the same amount of points that they got all of last season. Cork City actually have 1 point more than they got in the 20 games last year within their first 5 games. And like to me, it was an enjoyable game. It was good to see so many young stars on show, so many young players sort of making an impact on that sort of game. A couple of the imports having big impacts for Treaty. Marie Uliak probably won't want to see that incident again where she miscontrolled the ball, done well to claim it just before the line. I do want to mention Breifne, a goalkeeper wearing Puma Kings. I actually loved it. I really loved it. I thought the footwear was sublime. Great to see Cork back in Turner's Cross, the first League of Ireland game back in Turner's Cross. TG Carr, it's great to see them being shown on TG Carr. I know they were supposed to be shown last year. It didn't happen. But it's good to see now that all 11 clubs have now featured on TG Carr since they've come into the league.
It's a bit disappointing it took this long when I know some teams have been on there 5 or 6 times. But at the same time, you're right. It's great to see them all on. Maybe let's get the thoughts and views of the manager from Cork, Danny Murphy, who's going to join us now. Welcome to the programme, Danny.
No, thanks for having us, lads. I appreciate you making the call and asking me to come on again.
No problem. Delighted to have you whenever you're free, really, to join us. But it's been an interesting almost 2 years since you took up the job back in 2002. I know we had you on the podcast.
2022.
What did I say?
2002 was a long time ago.
Danny was playing in Turner's Cross in 2002. But in terms of the last 2 years, I suppose we'll get into the specifics of last Saturday's games and the season so far, which is a lot of positive green shoots coming out of it. But over the last 2 years, are you happy with how the last 2 years has shaped up for you?
Yeah, no, obviously, last year was disappointing in terms of like the league position and like some of the results within games. But in terms of performance and what we were trying to get to, we were trying to build something. And I think I said when I was on last time, like, it's not going to be something that happens overnight. It's going to be something over a 3-4 year period that we're trying to build towards. And it's a lot of it has come from hard work in terms of like my staff, the club, the girls, and the effort the girls put in and the things we've asked them to do. We're now starting to see rewards for the amount of effort and time they put in. And look, I know I can ask for ridiculous amounts of their time, and you understand that it's not a job for them. It's a hobby that they love, and and for me, it's like we're starting to see the benefits of the work we've done. And I think that we've still got a long way to go. We've still got a lot of work to do, but we're kind of halfway where we want to be.
Did you think in that time that maybe you would have blooded so many younger players into the squad? Because it's something that we've seen in recent years is that Cork underage, Cork academies has been quite successful. Did you think when you come in that you'd have so many youngsters in your team, and youngsters who are now starting to shine amongst some of the senior players?
Yeah, I think that we had identified quite a lot of the younger girls when I took the job. I said that, when I met with the club for my original interview, I did say that there's a lot of young girls at that are playing 17 and 19s internationals that should be playing first team football, and we need to start bringing some of them in. But when you get in there and you're like going, right, can't just throw them straight in. It's going to take a little bit of time, and you had to gradually drip some of them in and bring them in and out, and kind of like manage how you do that. So it was a little bit tough at times in the first year because, you know, we had some girls that were there for quite a long time, and maybe for them they needed like new things to go on to and new challenges for themselves, and we just felt that we needed to bring some of the younger talent through and give them the opportunity. And to be honest, the girls have taken it. Like they've never let me down, they've never let themselves down, and they definitely haven't let the club down.
Talk us through that incident at the not incident, but that kind of whole timeline at the end of last season. You're in the job 18 months. You kind of see the future the way you want the club to progress. And I suppose there was a little bit of public fallout from that as well in terms of some of the players that left. What was going on in the club around that time at the end of last season? And I suppose what were the steps that you needed to make or that were made to kind of get the club to where they are now?
No, I think, look, there was some players that we felt we couldn't guarantee them regular first team football, and when we met with them at the end of the year, we was open with them and honest about that. And we don't want to keep people here just for the sake of being here. We want to people who are hungry and looking to come into the first team and drive the club on. And look, we made some decisions that people might not have been happy with, but at the end of the day, they're decisions that we felt were for the benefit of the football club and for the benefit of the team improving and developing. And look, you're never going to keep everyone happy. And what people have got to understand is it's not personal. It's about your views of the game and players individually and what you might feel that player can add to a team that another player might not be able to add to a team. And no decision you make around players or your team selection, who's on the bench, who's not on the bench, who's in the squad, who's not in the squad, is personal. It's around the overall picture of, can you get a result the weekend? Can you get more points in the league table the following season? And that's where our decisions were made. And I feel that we made the right decisions. And, we stuck together on that, and the club supported us on it. And I think that it's shown this year that the decisions we made, that there was nothing wrong with the decisions we made. It just might have upset a few people, and that's fine. I don't expect everyone to like me. I don't expect everyone to be happy with the things I do. But as long as I can say, like, I feel I've made the right choices, and I feel that my decisions were right, then I can live with that.
How was that period for you, though, Danny? Because when you see the outlash on social media and the backlash, how was that for you as a coach? Because obviously your mind is about, can I improve Cork City? How was that for you having to read that? Because there's no doubt you would have read quite a lot of the comments.
I read some bits and pieces of it. I think, look, people don't really know what's going on and like what's happening in the club on a day-to-day and what things are happening. But I do think it got a bit personal towards me, which, look, that's okay. I'm all right with that. Like, they're not my friends anyway, so they're not going to hurt my feelings by the things they write on social media. And I just felt when it got a bit around me, where I was born and like where I'm from, I thought that was a bit too far. But look, as I said, I think the proof will always be in the pudding. And if you continue to progress and do the right things, then people who write them things are very quickly forgotten about, and people move on from them very quickly. And I think that for me, you knew you was going to get backlash. We knew that was going to happen. A bit, it's a case of you're going to have to deal with that, and that's all part and parcel of the job.
Does dealing with that sort of stuff, I suppose this wouldn't have been an issue in the women's game even 5-10 years ago, but now kind of people a bit more, I suppose, quick to go to social media and share opinions and create those kind of little bits and pieces, and they're entitled to do that. There's no problem with it, as you said yourself. But do you enjoy that side of the job, or is it just a distraction from just recruiting players and coaching them?
No, I think that people who know me and people who play for me know what I'll do for them and the things I'll do to help them develop and improve. So like, people who don't really know me and they want to write things, that's up to them. Like, that's their choice. Like, it's not going to affect me on a day-to-day. Look, it can be hurtful, and if you really want to go into things like that, but I don't really care. Like, all I care about is my son is looked after and is happy every day, and I'm able to support everything I need for my family, and that with my football club and the girls that I have, that I'm doing the right thing for them.
Danny, when you first came into Cork, there was a lot of talk about facilities, stuff that had gone on previous, and you've talked a little bit about the club when you've asked for stuff off the club and stuff like that. How's that side of the club now in terms of the women's game? Because, there was a lot of talk before you'd come in about teams having to train early in the day or earlier in the day just to get facilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, listen, obviously I wasn't around when all that stuff was going on. It's very difficult for me to pass judgment on other people, especially if we're talking about the Twitter post before, like to go and say things about them. But like for me, it's about being organised and having a structure in place and knowing, look, this is where we're going to be. This is the place we're going to be at. And look, we put things in place when we first come in, and we've been very lucky that Ringmahon Football Club have supported us and helped us with stuff and gave us facilities and gave us AstroTurf for the evenings for the girls to train, and not just for the senior team, but for our 17s and 19s. And they've been brilliant. And to be honest, a lot of the Passage have been the same. Passage and Mayfield United have supported us and helped us. So like, there's been football clubs around the county that have been willing to help and support us and give us facilities and allow us to train there and help us out. But it's about reaching out to them at the right time to be able to get yourself in a place for next year. So you've nearly got to work a year ahead, because they've got their own clubs, they've got their own money to be made for their football clubs. But if you get in there in enough time and you do the right things and you help support them by going out to their clubs with their young kids, going and showing that there's females, trying to help them grow their programs, like, people are quite happy to support and help you then.
I'm not even sure if you're aware of this, but I think you're the second longest serving manager in the division. And despite the fact that you're not even in the job longer than 2 years, the only person who's there longer, I think, is James O'Callaghan in the current role.
Yeah.
Do you take, like, what's your thoughts on how quickly the manager, as we lost the League of Ireland manager today, what's your thoughts on that merry-go-round, and how quickly it comes around for lots of teams, for a lot of reasons, not just getting sacked, but people move on and do other things as well. But like, what's your thoughts on how quickly that whole thing changes?
Yeah, I think, look, it comes down to like I think we've been very clear on our plan as a club and as a staff, and very clear that it was going to take time to get to where we want to get to. But I think, look, I do feel we've reached the targets and where we want to get to, in terms of saying, look, we need to establish ourselves being more aggressive as a team and a team hard to beat. And we've done that when we first come in. Then we wanted to be a better footballing side and have our own kind of style in the second year, which I felt we'd done as well. We didn't quite get the results and finish up the table where we wanted to. But I think there was a lot of elements of that season that showed the footprint and the blueprint, to where we want to get to. And then it was all about this year trying to finish better than we did last year and getting to where we wanted to. And I think it's hard. Like, it is difficult because, look, I'm constantly on a week-to-week, day-to-day. Like, you've got to be doing the right things, because if you don't get results, that's what's going to happen. And look, I feel we're in a good place at the moment. We've still got room to grow and develop, and we've got to continue to grow, and we've got to do that as a staff and as a football club.
While you're talking about, growing and improvement and things like that, we're seeing an awful lot from other clubs in terms of improvement and taking steps on and stuff like that. When you look back to when you first come into the league to where you are now, how far further ahead, or where do you see the league is compared to when you first come into it to where we are now today?
Yeah, I think the league as a whole, in terms of the clubs and the teams, have really improved. I think that the investment that's been made by clubs has been good. I think that not that I think it's sustainable at times, but I think when you look at Galway, when I first come in, I think towards the end of that year, we played Galway and Phil Trill had just come in as manager, and we beat them. And we were by far the better team. But the level of investment he's been able to kick on and improve and have the investment to do what they're doing at the moment, and to get the crowds they got the weekend is remarkable, and it's credit to them as a football club in terms of what they're trying to do.
In terms of, I suppose, we look at the package that's on offer to supporters, and there was over 2,000 people in Terryland or Emma Park the weekend, which is phenomenal. But from your own point of view, it'd be nice to have that kind of support, but it's very difficult when you don't necessarily know where you're going to be playing from week to week. We've talked about this over the last 2 years, moving games to Bishopstown willy-nilly and a couple of other places around the county. But what was your take on the whole, or the girls' take on the whole Turner's Cross situation over the last month or so, where it's been out of service and it's only just come back in the last week or so for schools finals or youth finals and your own games?
Yeah, look, listen, it wasn't ideal, but I do think it wasn't ideal the way it all happened. but I do think it's been for the best of the pitch and for the best of like being able to play the right style of football on the pitch. It wasn't in great shape. Okay, we all knew that, and I think it was very evident to see on TV it wasn't. I think it was just that it happened so quickly, and it came out so quick that kind of threw everyone off. But I think the conversations that have been had around the league and with the MFA and with in the club have been good, and that's why we look at the pitch at Turner's Cross on Saturday was brilliant, unbelievable. Pitch was in perfect condition. Still areas that need to improve around the goal mouths, but that will get better because of the weather's improving. And ultimately, it comes down to that. The weather hasn't been great over the last 6 to 7 months, so it hasn't been able to get what it needs. But things can always be done better, right? We can always deal with things better. We can always communicate things better. But I think we're in a good place with the MFA, and we understand the situation, and we work together with them at the time to make this right.
And what was that like though when you know the uncertainty at the time, because when it was announced the pitch is closed indefinitely with no sort of date at that time, what was that sort of like? Because you knew you had that TV game coming up against Treaty. You also had another game, but you'd also rearranged a couple of All-Ireland Cup games to be played away. What was that? Was there a bit of a concern, because you heard us talk at the start of the show about the fact that Cork hadn't been shown live on TV and that game was coming up?
Yeah, I think, look, for me, and I say it to the girls a lot, is control the controllables. Certain aspects that we can't control. So if we let them bother us and get us down and we worry about them so much, they're only going to affect us. Now, we couldn't control that situation, and it wasn't down to myself or the girls to control it. But what we could do is we could look at the fixtures, look at where we could move games to. And like ultimately for me, I didn't want games to be played at Bishopstown because I don't think the facilities is the right for the girls, and it's not a good showcase for women's football in this country. So we said, right, well, we'll play our games. We'll reverse the fixtures with the teams, and we work with the league on that and the clubs to make sure that the girls are getting the right facilities to play on and changing and showering and whatever they need, but as well that that what we're showing as a model for the league and what we're showing as in terms of the league looks like, that we're showing it in the right light and doing it in the right way. And I think that was really important for me, because look, we could have gone and played at Fermoy and played games, but it doesn't. Fermoy's pitch is amazing, but it's not a League of Ireland ground, and games need to be played there.
I suppose the Galway situation, to go back to it again, the attendance of that game kind of backs that up in terms of you have to have somewhere where people can go to the bathroom, people can maybe get a coffee or a tea or something to eat during the game, because they're there for the guts of 2 or 3 hours. And if you have young kids, you can't keep them sitting in a seat or stand on the sideline for that length of time. They'll get bored. What needs to happen, though, in terms of Cork's situation, because you don't own the ground, you're renting facilities. The investment that came in there from Dermot Usher, 12 months ago, 15 months ago, how much of that has trickled down to the women's team, the women's side of the club, or is it a full club focus, or is it just the men's side and then the women's are kind of left to do their own thing?
No, it's a full club focus from the owner. I think, look, Dermot's probably said as well, last year was a learning curve for him in terms of what needs to be done, things that need to improve, how to develop things. And like, things are not going to change overnight. They're just not. And they're going to take time, and it's going to take years. It could be 3-4 years down the line when we get where we want to get to and having training facilities. But ultimately it comes down to, I think it needs to be heavily funded by the government. I think that there needs to be huge amounts more money put into not just women's football, but the men's football. I think that it'll keep more people in the country watching games and going to games, instead of, like, you could look at flights every weekend. People are going off to Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and going over and supporting them. But if we have good facilities here in Ireland, people will stay here and they'll come and watch games, and the quality will improve. And plus, if people stay here and watch games on a Friday night, they're less likely to go somewhere on a Sunday and fly, or a Saturday and fly. They're more likely to go to a local pub and watch it and spend money in there. So, like, if the investment's right into the League of Ireland, not just on the men's, on the women's side, because we need it probably a lot more than the men's do, but it needs to come from the government, because the FAI can't do it, because they need the funding from the government to be able to do it as well. So there does need to be huge amounts of funding put into the football in this country.
if you to look at Cork City, let's just look at Cork because we've talked about Galway's great attendance. Last year, Cork had a massive attendance at a game as well. What do you as a club need to do to maybe break that barrier to that you're getting 1,000, you're getting 1,100, that sort of crowds on a regular basis?
Brutally, honestly, need to win more games. Need to be more successful as a football team. And if we're more successful as a football team and you're higher up the table, you'll get people come in. Like, it's the realities of the game. Like, no one wants to come and watch you if you're bottom of the table. People want to come and see a team that, are winning games or competing in games. And that's what we've been working towards. And I think that's why our attendances over the years have gradually gone up and up and up. And because we are getting to that. And I do think hopefully in 2-3 years' time, and I'm still in the job, that we are competing at the other end of the table. And, this year really give us a good insight to where we're at and what we need to do to develop and improve. And I do think then that crowds will come.
But the other side of that, I suppose, just to kind of counter your argument, Danny, is I don't think necessarily we should be focusing on results, because I think that means that only ever 1 or 2 teams are going to be doing well on that side of things, and the other 8 are going to be struggling because they're not winning leagues. But we look at the league champions, where Peamount were at Shamrock Rovers at the weekend, and I think I heard an attendance figure there, and it wasn't great, and it looked low on LOI TV. I think it was somewhere in the region of 200 or 300 people at the game. Like, for the league champions versus the women's side from the men's league champions, in a good facility, it's got everything. It's midday on a mid-afternoon on a Saturday afternoon. There's no reason why we shouldn't be having 1,000 people or 2,000 people at that game either, and yet they weren't there. So, and they're too, well, Shamrock Rovers are struggling this year, but they were in the top 3 last season. That's important, right? What can Cork do differently to attract players in that isn't relying on results, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that we've worked really hard on that as a club. Like, we've been going out to the schools, giving out the tickets, trying to get more kids coming in, working with the schoolgirls clubs to get more people going. I think that, like, for us, and I'm better off talking really about us, is I think in Cork, if you're achieving and you're doing well, people will follow you and people will get behind you and they will come and watch games. And that comes from when I was here as a player to now as a manager. I think people will get behind you. I think the talk around the women's team at the moment in the county is constantly getting better. People now stopping you to go, unlucky the weekend result wasn't great. People didn't ever do that before. And I was explaining this to the girls the other day. I had a young girl come up to me. I was coaching on Sunday, and she was like, I went to the game on Saturday. It was my first ever game. I loved it. Ola Omani is my favourite player, the little girl in midfield. She'll hate me for saying that because I call her little legs, but she we've not had that. We've not had young kids come up to us and do that. And I think that the girls are changing that, and the girls are the ones that will get the fans in because they're out doing the work and people appreciate it, and that's why people will start coming to the games. I think we had 800, was it, at the game on Saturday? And that's with all the Cork schoolgirls teams. They was all at tournaments all Saturday.
Okay.
So we've probably lost out on potentially another 200-300 people coming in the gate. And to still get it was massive.
How important is that community work, though, Danny? Because we've seen social media posts the other week of being in and around the schools, being in and around it. How important is that even for the players to understand, about the next generation that are coming through after them, for them to show that they're the heroes of the players who are playing now, or of the youngsters?
Yeah, I think for us, we're quite lucky. Our girls are young, right? So they're only probably 5-6 years older than some of them girls that are at school. So when you're going into them and having them conversations with kids and telling them, look, she was here 3 years ago and look where she is now. So it's trying to highlight that and show that, and look, and trying to have people young girls can look up to and aspire to be like. Okay. I think for me as a kid, my local school, when I was younger, we used to have Millwall players come in, and it was players like Teddy Sheringham and people like that. Now, I idolised him as a kid growing up, but then he went to Tottenham and I couldn't stand him. Right? He come into your school and you're seeing him and you're like, oh my God, I want to be like Teddy Sheringham. Now, I was never going to be 5'11" and play up front and get 20 goals a season, but he was someone I looked up to and I wanted to be like. And I think it's having kids going into schools, and for all the clubs, for us going into schools, is to have someone for kids to go when they go on a Saturday. They go, I met that person. They come into my school, like, and I think they can relate to the player then, because they feel like they know them. You know what kids are like? They'll go, oh, I know Ronaldo. Well, I see him on holiday and my picture up. And that's trying to build that, and that's what we're trying to do as a football club. And it's hard because you're asking girls to come out and go to schools when they're either doing their leaving cert, studying for exams, working, and you're trying to work around all that and find the right balance. And I think we've done really well with that. And the girls have been brilliant in terms of making themselves available whenever they could.
Let's talk about football. We're only in 25 minutes into the interview at this stage, but let's actually chat about football and stuff on the pitch, because I suppose last Saturday, we might get that out of the way first. It's probably the only negative really in what's been a very promising season for the club so far. Thoughts after the game at the weekend, 3-0 defeat Treaty?
Yeah, I think straight after the game, I would have said that I don't think we didn't work hard enough. We lost second balls. We didn't compete well enough. But then when you watch the game back, and I think it's important that you try and take the emotion out of the game afterwards. I think that we had some really, probably for around 35 minutes in the first half, had some really good opportunities in the final third. And we just probably didn't make the right choice of pass, picked the wrong option, or small little details like the wrong way to pass, passing it to the person on the wrong side. And that kind of killed our flow a little bit, because I think we worked the ball out really well from the back and got to the opposition's half. And we've not run out of ideas. We just picked the wrong option. And I think second half, we were 1-0 down, probably got caught up in the moment. We're a little bit too expensive in how we tried to play and tried to go forward and get a goal. And I think Treaty done really well in hitting us on the counter attack. And with their speed and the way they play, we knew that would be an option for them. But we wanted to try and win the game and try and get back in it. And we left ourselves too open at times.
How important is it, though, in them sort of games, when you look back at it, Danny, that, you reflect upon the good things that you've done, or the good moments as well? Because while the goals are disappointing, you could see some of the aspects of play as well that have come on maybe a couple of steps from last year.
Yeah, I think, look, it's really important, especially because our messages to the girls is that this is our style of play and this is how we want to do things. And this is what it needs to look like. And then I think it's really important that we've always said that we're still building, we're still trying to develop, we're still trying to get better. So you can't go into a game and you lose a game and go, that wasn't good enough, you lot of this and you lot of that, and this wasn't a great result, you didn't try hard enough. I think you've got to watch things back and go, do you know what? A lot of what we asked them to do, they did. But there was elements of it that just didn't have that cutting edge or that final end product that led to us getting more goal scoring opportunities. And I think that was our problem on Saturday. We didn't create enough chances in the final third to create a goal scoring opportunity.
That seems to be a perennial issue for you this season, though, because only hit the back of the net 3 times in 6 games. Is that a worry?
No, I think it's an area we need to continue to work on. I think it's an area that we can be better at. And I think that we all know as a group, myself, the staff and the girls, that we're working on it. We're still developing it. We're still trying to get it right. And if we continue to do the right things and continue to work at it, that the goals will come and we continue to get better.
In terms of performances, though, Danny, when you look at performances this year, the one thing that probably disappointed you last year was you were putting in good 45-minute displays against teams and then sort of second half letting teams take over a little bit. How, when you reflect this season overall in the first 5 games, how do you look back at them 5 games? You've had 2 wins out of them. How do you look back at them in terms of the results and the overall momentum you've sort of got a bit this year?
Yeah, I think we're more consistent in terms of how we keep our shape and stay organised through games. We haven't been consistent in the results from one week to the next, but there's been elements of some consistency in terms of what our shape looks like, lasting for having that consistent performance for longer periods of the game. I feel that Saturday we had areas of it that we done really well, but it just didn't. Like Treaty picked us off from our own individual errors, right? I think we had large parts of the game where we dominated possession, but we've got to be more productive with that. And they're things we're still working on. We're still young. We're still trying to improve and still trying to get better. And that for me is a plus point, that it isn't going to be consistent. It isn't going to be what we want to see every week, but it's knowing that we understand that and we can help them to try and get there.
Let's rewind a little bit back to the Bows game. And of course, a bit of controversy coming out of that. You used, I think it's 4 windows rather than 3 substitution windows. Can we talk about that? Are you allowed to talk about that? I know it's been through the appeal situation or through disciplinary stuff. You got away with it in the end, though. You got a slap on the wrist and a warning not for it to happen again. Did you expect to get the game given to Bows in that situation when you realised the problem?
I don't think we did, because I don't think the situations arise before. I think for us, like, the question was asked to the fourth official, and it was, oh yeah, no, it's okay. So we ended up doing it. Now, we wasn't trying to gain an advantage in terms of winning the game by doing it, because we was already winning. It was more looking at, when someone got tired, we need to change someone. So look, I think that we all made mistakes, not just myself and the staff, but from the people officiating the game and the people assessing the game. We all made a mistake, and it's something that we've got to learn from and we've got to do better with, because it wasn't something like, for me, it's not a case of we've registered an illegible player and then stuck them on the pitch knowing that they're not registered. You know, it's a mistake made during the game in the heat of the moment, which could have been fixed if someone had noticed it, but no one did.
Is that why you got the warning? Because it was as much an officials mix-up as your side mix-up?
Yeah, maybe that could be the reason why. I think probably, and that is the reason, because I think fair play to the officials, right? Because in their reports back now, and I don't always speak very highly of them, right? They were very honest, and they held their hands up as well to say they made mistakes, and I think that helped.
We had a chat in the podcast, Danny, a couple of days after this, when it was first sort of raised, and I said to Breifne, I said, I didn't even notice, you know, and that's the sort of thing I didn't even notice. It was only when you start to get told, it's like, okay, I didn't even realize that. And the first question I sort of turned around and said is, not from being at games, in particular when you're in PML, considering how close the fourth official is to the sideline, you'd normally hear that conversation between the officials and the coaches. And I've sort of saying to Breifne, I was like, for me, it can only be that they've been told they've been okay, or it's the official hasn't recognised it. When you look at that sort of situation, especially when you put a good performance in against a side that a lot of people probably didn't expect you to be, like, is there any concern when you're sort of going through them sort of the emotions of the process? You're sort of thinking, oh, I'm worried over this, just because of the fact that, you know, you put in a good performance, you deserve to beat them on the day, probably should have scored another goal or two on the day as well.
I think the biggest thing from my point was, I wasn't bothered about the points, right? That doesn't bother. That was like, right, well, that's something we'd have to hold our hands up as a staff and say, take responsibility for. But my thing was how it might affect the team, how it might affect the girls who feel like they've done all that work and that's been taken away from them. I think that was my biggest concern, and the anxiety around waiting for a decision to be made was like, how's this going to affect them? Because no one knew. Like, no one knew what had gone on, and we'd kept it quiet. And I think it could have affected us as a group and a team in terms of for the going into the next week and the next game. So that was probably my biggest concern, was how it'd affect the girls, and the work that they put into it, to have that then taken away from them would have been really disappointing for them. And look, ultimately, it would have come down to we'd have had to take like, it's part of our responsibility as a staff. That doesn't happen.
You must have slept
Can I go back?
The result back.
Can I go back a tiny bit just on that? Like, that build up, because you've got the result against Wexford as well the week before. Like, because you're saying it could have affected your players. You're going in off the back of a point against Wexford where you've done very well to get that point, and then that win. How much does that maybe take the momentum if that's sort of gone the opposite way? Because the Sligo result was quick enough after that game as well.
I think it's hard to say because luckily enough it didn't happen, but I think it's what goes through your head, thinking this could send us back 2 steps. This could really affect the morale of the group, and I think that for me is always like my concern. And the girls will laugh, but I always say to them is, I feel we can beat anyone on our day, but I always think that we can beat ourselves. So I think it's making sure that we always turn up on the day, because I think we have some exceptional quality in our team, but we when we're not consistent, when we don't do the right things, we don't win games. But when we do them, I think we're very good.
Shamrock Rovers come to town on Saturday. I think if someone had given you the situation of being 3 points ahead of Shamrock Rovers at this stage of the season, you'd have been quite happy to take that at the start of the year. Thoughts going into the game at the weekend?
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with you. I think for us last year, we ran Shamrock Rovers very close in games, even though the scorelines probably didn't reflect that. But probably for 45 minutes of most games, we were probably the better side. But then they just had that firepower and that little bit of know-how how to change things, manipulate the game and win the game. And then we'd kind of fall apart a little bit. But I always felt if we can be more consistent in them performances, that we could hold Shamrock Rovers or keep closer to Shamrock Rovers this year. I think, look, things haven't gone great for them this year. They haven't got the results they probably expected to have or competing where they expect to be in the table. But it's still a dangerous side. They've got a lot of really, really good players. So I don't think where they're at the moment really reflects them as a team. I think that they will come good at some stage, but I think we're a better team than what we was last year.
Is it experience is the biggest thing in that sort of sense? Because anytime I sort of spoke to you last year, you'd see the likes of young Ellie O'Brien, Kira Senna, Clodagh Fitzgerald, even Fiona Bradley, who's now moved on to treaty, but they're all a core of your team was very young. Is probably the biggest difference is experience for a lot of them younger players that have had that year, they've had that next pre-season under their belts to take that step on? Or what do you think has been the biggest driving factor in making that couple of steps this year?
Yeah, I think that does come down to it. I think that does have a really important part to play in it in terms of experience and understanding moments within the game of what to do and what not to do. But I think a lot of it comes down to the amount of work and dedication they're putting in the off season. Like we didn't give them a break in the off season. So when the season finished, we had a 2-week break of just 2 weeks off, and then they were back in the gym because we felt that there are areas we need to improve on. And it's a quick fix and an easy thing to get them ready for. And look, they could turn and go, I ain't doing that. But they didn't. They showed up. They was at all the gym sessions, all the extra stuff we asked them to do. And I think that comes down to why they are where they are this year, because they put in the gym sessions, done the extra work, and that's why they're achieving and doing better than what we did last year.
Just speaking of, I suppose, players coming in from previous existence of the club, we're looking at some of the players that would have played for Cork and would be from that general area. The likes of Maria O'Sullivan signed with Galway this year. Ava O'Mahony is going to be with Shells later in the season. Is that a disappointment to see players that would be from, I suppose, the Cork City hinterland deciding to see how it works at other clubs maybe?
Yeah, listen, obviously it is. Look, you'd love to have them here. I think that Ava's a good player. I helped her actually move from Boston to Texas, and she came in and trained with us a lot during the off season. So, we thought from conversations with her that there was a possibility she could come back and come to here, but when it come down to it, she made the decision to go elsewhere. So, and that's for her benefit in terms of where she feels is best for her as a footballer, and that's fine. I mean, we had Maria here before, and Maria went back to the US, and we thought that if she come back here, we could offer an opportunity to play, but that she chose not to, and that's her choice. And it just gave someone else an opportunity within them positions to step up and take the opportunity and hopefully do well. I mean, Maria's not playing at Galway, so potentially she could have come here and played, and would it have made a difference in terms of for her? Potentially it could have done.
Danny, I have to ask about, we see a lot of, I would say, eyes on underage football and stuff like that. How much do you think maybe with the likes of the under-19s qualifying for the Euros, the under-17s, although they didn't have a good first phase, they beat Portugal in a friendly. How important do you think maybe the likes of the underage leagues can be to the likes of Cork improve or development in terms of the underage internationals Cork going forward? Because we see quite a few Cork players in and around these sort of younger underage squads.
Yeah, no, look, obviously it's the level of football and the quality of players they're playing against on a weekly basis is whenever they're with internationals is really high. So it's only ever going to help them improve and develop and get better. And the more girls we can have in and around that will help us as a club and as a team and like get better, and we'll have better quality players coming through. I think for me, like the under 17s league and the 19s leagues are a lot younger now in terms of the players playing in them, especially from our point of view. We've probably gone a year or 2 years younger in them age groups because we feel that most of the girls when they're 17, 18, 19, like they should be close to playing first team football. And we've kind of taken that bigger step in terms of bringing them in at younger ages to give them that opportunity. And hopefully what we're doing will help us at an international level as well at the 17s and 19s, because we've got Kira Senna and Cloda. You've got like Neve Cotter Heidi, Ellie O'Brien, Chloe Atkinson. All them girls have been in around international setups. And hopefully we had a part to play in that by having them play first team football to have helped them at international football.
One of the most impressive players for Cork over the last 18 months or so has undoubtedly been Eva Mangan. Talk to us about the impact she's had and what her trajectory is like. Where could you see her ending up in terms of international or maybe even playing professionally abroad? If that's a goal for her, I don't even know.
Yeah, look, it should be a goal for her. It should be a goal for any young girl playing in this league. I as much as we want to keep the best players in the league, I do think it's a good place to showcase your ability for potential bigger clubs coming in for you and making a career in football more than, being, because ultimately it's not going to be a career for most players in this league. It's going to be something that they do on top of having a career. So like that should be most players' aims. Like any player who's happy to stay somewhere for the rest of their career is, then what's their drivers, what's their aims, and what are they trying to, where can you improve them if they've not got the ambition to want to do that? And look, Eva's an exceptional player. I think she's been decent this year, but there's still a lot more to come. I think Eva's development in terms of as a player and over the last 2 seasons has been good. I think that we've moved her around in different positions to help her with that development and help her understand different positions in terms of as a midfielder. She's now back where I feel she's best in terms of playing in the 10. And now Eva wants to add more goals and more assists to her game. And I think she's starting to do that.
The goal against Bows was sublime. It's just pure Eva Mangan. She's one of my favourite players to watch, has been the last couple of years. Danny, I know we don't necessarily, you probably don't want to talk about players specifically, but just on Eva, what was the decision to make her captain at so young?
Eva was quiet. I felt making her captain would bring her out of her shell a bit more. I wanted her to have more responsibility in and around the club. Like the amount of pressure that's on that young girl to play well every week and to be the main player was massive. So I kind of wanted to put her in an uncomfortable situation so she could deal with that. So making her captain and having to have conversations with players and staff and be a leader was something probably wasn't Eva's forte. She'd do her talking on the pitch and do it with that, but her development in terms as a young girl turning into an adult, like we after the Sligo game, we done our video at the hotel, and after we do our video, the captain always speaks for a bit, and Eva's message to the players was so clear, so precise, so like detailed in what needed to be done in the game that we didn't say anything as a staff. We just got up and walked out and left and went to the game. And like to see that from her over the last 2 years and where she's got to, I just think she's still got a lot more to learn, but she's starting to learn to demand more of other people, not accept people not doing enough. And training the other day when the girls were doing it was like a sprint drill, and she felt some of the girls weren't doing it as well as they should. And then as soon as she called them out on it, the next thing everyone's doing it. Because Eva doesn't leave any, she trains with huge amounts of intensity, works hard all the time. And I think that when she steps up and says something, other players know they have to do it.
Could she follow in the footsteps of some other famous Cork number 10s? I'm thinking Denise O'Sullivan, maybe Saoirse Noon, and even Claire Shine at her period in the UK. Could we see her get to those levels?
Not yet. I hope. No, look, I do think Eva has the potential to do that, and look, there is a lot of interest around Eva. But I think Eva still wants to improve and trust myself. I hope, and from the conversations we have, that I can help her get to where she needs to get to. And I think, yes, she could do that, and hopefully she is one day. But I hope that we keep her for a little bit longer to help her get to that stage.
Absolutely will. That starts on Saturday with the visit of Shamrock Rovers to Turner's Cross. Do get along if you're in the area. It should be a good game. And I suppose what Cork City 4, only 1 defeat in 5 games. Not bad. Not a bad little records for you so far, Danny.
Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been nice. It's been nice weekends to take her to go home. I think this weekend was one of the down ones. But look, when you're not winning games and you're not having the success you want, it's difficult. It is hard. It's hard for everyone, not just the players and the supporters. It's hard for the staff as well, because you do get down and it does make things tough. But we've always stuck together and we've kept fighting, and now we're starting to enjoy our weekends a little bit more.
How's that first training session after defeat now compared to maybe previous, where you've known, okay, it's going to be very difficult for us to get a result the next week, or we're going to have to be 10 out of 10 to get some. How's the training session now, where you sort of have that bit more belief? You have that more belief that you go in against a team and you put your performance in, that you can get a result. How's that training session differ after a defeat?
I think we're quite realistic as a group. We can't change the game. We can't change the result. But what we can do is try and get better. We can try and fix the things we didn't implement very well. And we've got 3 days to go and do that, 3 training sessions. So there's no point dwelling on it. The result's gone. We can't go back and fix the result. But what we can do is try and get better and try and improve for the following week. And we've taken that mindset in since last season, is trying to improve every week on week. One result's gone, move on to the next one. And I think because we're doing that, the girls are bought into that now, and they're starting to understand that. That's why we can go into the next game and potentially get the result that we want.
Well, listen, the very, very best of luck to you and your team on Saturday against Shamrock Rovers. Danny, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, as always, chatting to you. A very honest and straightforward interview. Love having you on the show. Thanks a million.
No problem. Thanks for having me, lads.
Thanks, Danny.
Danny Murphy there.
40 minutes with Danny Murphy. I really enjoyed that.
That was great. I'm so excited about what's happening in Cork with the start of the season. They need to be competitive. The league needs Cork to be competitive, just from a geography point of view as much as anything else.
I think that's one thing I've said to you the first time I came onto the show. I said the league needs a competitive Galway, competitive Limerick side, and a competitive Cork side. Without that, the league never grows to the sort of potential that it can grow, because there are regions, when you look at the population, you look at the culture in sport in them regions, and like even when you look at some of the results that Cork have had this year, like when they go up against Bows, nobody's given them a chance. Nobody gave them a chance. And like I remember watching the game, sort of thinking, 70 minutes here, and Bows still haven't even tested the keeper. And you're just like, that's just, and it was a lot of it was to do with Cork's hustle, their bustle, their mentality. And like the goal that Eva Mangan scored that day, for me, if there was a golden boot, if there was a goal in the month award, I'd be handing it to her straight away, because it was absolutely sublime. She tried the same thing in the first half and hit the post, and then just to have the audacity to just turn on the swivel and just bink into the far corner. It's just typical Eva. And like the great thing is that we're having conversations about a positive Cork. Yes, listen, Saturday wasn't great. Danny said it himself. They pushed to try and get back into the game. They were left exposed, and that's what sort of caught them on the sucker punch for the second and third goal. But like if they score before Kate Lawley scores, it could be a completely different game, different momentum. But like I think there's so many positives there. The fact that they've already got more points than they got last year. The great thing is, for a lot of teams, we're talking about positives, and I think that's important. And I think hopefully Cork can kick on. If they could get some sort of result against Shamrock Rovers this week, I think it'd be massive for them.
Absolutely, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Let's talk about Shamrock Rovers, because they're coming off a horrible run of form. 4 points in 5 games, 4 draws, no wins yet in the W column. there's got to be a lot of pressure on everybody involved with Shamrock Rovers just to kickstart that, because that's not acceptable for a club that size, I would imagine.
No, and to be honest with you, I thought they would have kicked on having beaten DLR in the All-Ireland Cup. I thought they would have sort of kicked on from that being a bit of momentum. And I know you're going to mention this. Like I said last week on the show, I thought Shamrock Rovers would win the game. And even just before P-Man scored, we were texting back and forth on Saturday. I said I thought Shamrock Rovers would win the game 2-0. I hadn't seen any of it at that stage. But the reason why is because P-Man scored.
You said that to me in the 18th minute, and P-Man scored in the 19th. I've never had so much pleasure from sending a text back on, are you watching this game? Yeah, you've totally got that one wrong, to be fair, but then we love a bit of humble pie on this show. In terms of the game at the weekend, though, P-Mount, they did their business. They didn't really do anything above and beyond what was required, but they came and they snuffed out everything Shamrock Rovers had to throw at them.
Do you know what? I'm going to say something. I'm glad Clive Maloney's fit, because Karen Duggan at centre-back, it is the most infuriating thing ever, because she's one of the most gifted midfielders we have in this league, and to see her wasted at centre back, yes, she'll do a job for you because she's that sort of person. Thankfully, Clive Maloney is fit. We should see Clive Maloney hopefully going back into centre back and Karen going back to midfield, because I think P-Man really need her. I can't remember if it was the first. I think it was the first goal. The pass from Ellen Doolan. The long ball where she plays it out to Aaron McLaughlin. McLaughlin still has a lot of work to do at that stage, and she takes it very well when she curls it past Amanda Budden. But what a ball by Ellen Doolan.
Yeah, no, but I think Pima just clicked across the pitch. There's nobody you could pick out and say they had a bit of a dodgy game. I just thought they were very, very solid. It does put a lot of pressure on Shamrock Rovers, as I mentioned. Your thoughts on the situation there? I don't like calling for any changes like that, but it's hard to see Shamrock Rovers.
Massive pressure.
Yeah,
but the problem is you see the likes of Jane Merrin, who'd left, is now starting regular for Wexford. Abby Tuchel's playing regularly for Wexford. Alana McAvoy starting regularly for Bows. Tegan Ruddy starting regularly for Bows. A lot of players who would have left starting regularly at clubs. And when you look back at it, like no more than what we've seen with Cork, a lot of people were surprised to see the amount of numbers that had gone out of Shamrock Rovers. I know when I spoke to Collie sort of said he was happy with the squad. It was just they were too top heavy. But like when you look at it, when they go behind in the game, they're struggling. Like it was a late penalty against DLR to get back into the game. They had to work really hard against Treaty to get the draw. And then when they go behind against P-Mount, you're sort of thinking, okay, it's going to be really difficult. Like the best chance was, I think was Jamie Thompson hit the post with a low shot. And like other than that, P-Mount were comfortable, quite comfortable in the game. And if you look at even Jetta Barrow a couple of times taking the ball away and nearly going on a bit of a run up the right flank, like you got to wonder for them a penny for the likes of Stephanie Zambra's thoughts having to come off the bench for them, considering she would have been someone who probably would have thought this season was an opportunity for her when she started against Shells. Was sort of out of the game a little bit. But the problem is where are the goals going to come from for Shamrock Rovers? That's the question, and that's why I say if Cork can get a goal, it really puts the pressure on. And I think something's going to have to change for Collie O'Neill, because the way things are going at the moment, it's hard to see where they're going to get a run of results.
It's mad that you say that when two of the league's record goal scorers are in that Shamrock Rovers squad. Mm-hmm. And we had to wait till the 77th minute to see Steph Zambra on the pitch on Saturday, which surprised me a little bit. If you're chasing a game against quality opposition, you want someone, okay, maybe she doesn't have the legs anymore. She'll kill me for saying that as well, but maybe she doesn't have the legs anymore, but she still can pick a pass. She has a most lethal shot from pretty much anywhere. We've seen her do it time and time again. Of course, there's always that one goal everyone talks about, but we've seen her do that dozens of times throughout the league. She can score from anywhere inside 30 yards, and she's not getting the game. And you're kind of questioning maybe what's going on at Shamrock Rovers. It doesn't seem to be the best environment at the moment.
Like if you look at her goal scorer, Anya Gorman's the top goal scorer with 2 games. Joy Ralph is another one who's scored. But like when you look at that, the substitution itself, you bring a Joy Ralph off for Stephanie, whereas you would have thought if I'm chasing a game, I'm having both of them on, I'm having as many attacking options as I can. If I lose the game 4-0, so be it. I'd rather lose the game 4-0 than go and try and get something out of it instead of taking off an attacker for an attacker. It just seems like a strange environment. Like you look at the result against Shelbourne. Like if Leo Leary takes that chance against Shells, it's a different ball game. You know, it's a completely different game. The penalty as well. The poor penalty from Anya Gorman against Shelbourne. Like they've had chances in games. Whereas if they get that result against Shells, we could be having a completely different conversation because they've kicked on, but they haven't even been able to kick on. And even the fact that they score against 4 against DLR, you're sort of thinking, is that a little bit of a spell where they go and score a couple of rampant? Like, it's hard to see where the win is going to come. And if they don't beat Cork this weekend, their next league game is Galway.
Yeah, it's a tough run-in for the next couple of weeks after this Cork game, which I think most people would expect them to do well in. But then again, you never know which team is going to show up on either side of that equation. So all to be revealed on that. Let's talk about the attendance. I mentioned it in the chat with Danny. I was disappointed. Now, it's hard to see maybe on the TV, and it's a big stadium, so a couple of hundred people doesn't look that much in that stadium. But it wasn't great when you're looking at the crowds down in Galway to see arguably two of the top sides in the league with only a couple of hundred people in the ground.
Do you want my honest opinion?
Yep.
I'm not entirely surprised. I can give you an attendance figure.
Okay.
Because I've just checked FAI Connect. 384.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
I'm not entirely surprised, and the reason being is because Peamount don't tend to get a big following. And when things aren't going well with Shamrock Rovers, the fans don't tend to come out. We've seen that. You know, you look at maybe even in the men's game, the draw of the game, they've been having full talent for the likes of a derby and stuff like that. And then the draw of the game, it's the far side is nearly empty. It's not really at all entirely surprising. I think they will get a big crowd for the Galway game just because of what it is on TV. But like to see that sort of crowd at that game, it's extremely disappointing. Like realistically, in this day and age, you would have hoped that sort of game garners 1,000, 1,200 fans, that sort of ballpark range, and that's what we're looking at. But when you see what's going on in Galway, like 2,861 at a women's Premier Division game is astronomical.
It's phenomenal. I think I'm so impressed with what Galway have done. I know we'd Phil on the show for an hour last week, and we had him for an hour afterwards. He stayed on chatting to us as well, and it was great to really pick his brain about what's going on down there. And there's some really, really positive stuff. We're so wildly over time, but that's okay. We plowed through. We might just skip on from the Rovers Peamount game and focus on some of the other games. Noel Murray rolled back the years last Saturday. Shells Bows 1-0. Noel Murray just shy of the hour mark. And what a goal as well. Like she really, like she looks to be in phenomenal shape this year. I know she did a lot of work on the off season to get in probably the best shape she's been in decades. But she looks really good this season.
Oh yeah. And the problem is Noel Murray's the sort of person you can't give that space to 35 yards from goal. The first thing I thought when I seen it is she's gonna take a touch and shoot. I absolutely got destroyed after the game by my little sister because I robbed her line. We were walking across to do interviews after the game, and she was talking about Noel Murray only scoring bangers at Talca Park. That's the first thing I turned around to Noel, and my sister's like, "Where's my credit? Where's my credit?" But it is like I can think of so many goals, like the goal against Galway where she dinked it over two players' heads and then volleyed into the corner. There's been so many occasions. You look at the goal where she scored against Peamount, where it was a long ball forward from Amanda Budd and it bounces once and Noel volleys it into the top corner to win 4-3. Like, when you talk about Noel, like, you don't tend to talk about poor goals. You tend to talk about them ones that always stick in your mind, always there, you know, them sort of brilliant goals. But, like, to have scored 100 goals for Shelbourne, that doesn't include what she scored for Raheny United as well. And, like, she's been someone who's been superb for this league. You're right in what you're saying. Physically, she looks brilliant. She's probably in the shape of her life, and you can see it. But like in terms of the game itself, like Bows had chances. First half Bows were decent. Shauna Carroll on another day when she hits the woodwork that goes in, they take the lead. But I just thought it was a bit of experience for Shelbourne is probably what won them the game. That bit of experience in the second half, bringing on some experienced players. Like, come here, Gemma Quinn doesn't get a start very often. But Gemma Quinn is a handful for any defence. An absolute handful. And I thought in the end, Shell's probably just shaded it. I spoke to Ken Kiernan after the game, and he was sort of proud of his players because to come and put in a decent performance with such a young squad, Like, there's a lot that both can build on. But for Shells, I think the most important thing is at the minute is these sort of games, they're turning that 0-0 draw into a 1-0 win. They're getting them couple of wins, because I think Shells are going to have to go on a run where they're going to have to win 5 or 6 games in a row, but if they want to challenge the likes of a Galway and Athlone, because we know they're capable of going on big runs.
Let's talk for a second about Galway, because Galway at the weekend, big win, 4-0 against DLR Waves. Could have been more. They had so many chances. Now, I will absolutely argue that one of those goals was definitely offside. I'm trying to remember which one it was now. I think it might have been the third goal, Jamie Erickson's goal. The header, there's a free in from Jenna Slattery. Ball gets headed on, and when the header happens, I sent you the video earlier today.
Yeah, I watched it.
She had to be at least 2 or 3 yards offside. I don't know how the refs didn't cop it at the time. I watched the game at the time, did not spot it. It was only when I was watching back the highlights earlier today that I realized that it was there. But,
yeah, I agree. I think it was offside. It was another clinical performance from Galway. 4-0 at home again. They beat Bows 4-0 at home. At home, they tend to be very, very good. The one thing I will say from a DLR Wales viewpoint is when you're missing Jess Gargan and you're missing Yeaman and Gassi, 2 big players to be missing. And you can see the difference when you're taking 2 of the top players out of the team, that they haven't necessarily got that squad depth to go and compete in these sort of games. I am hearing there's a potential that Jess could be back for the weekend against Shells. If she is, that'll be a massive addition. But I'm not sure if Naomi will be back. But from a Galway viewpoint, perfect response to having dropped the points again, having to draw against Peamount, come out 4-0 win at home. Do you know what I loved? You mentioned him earlier, Phil Trill, where I don't know if you've seen the photo on social media, where he said it was his first time his mother had been a name in DC Park.
I didn't see that. That's
brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. And, I think the biggest thing about this league at the minute is it's the connections that the players are making with fans. There was a great photo of Jessica Berlin holding a picture that a young fan had drawn for her. And, you could see the fans' face, the fans' reaction to it, because she got to meet Jessica. And then you're looking at what happened in Cork with they lost 3-0, but the players are there on the side of the pitch for a good 20 minutes, half an hour, signing autographs, meeting the fans and stuff like that. Like, that's all a massive positive. I think we've had so many positives happen in the league. On the field, it's definitely on the rise, and off the field, things are going well. And I think Galway are starting to shine and show what it is capable on the field and off the field.
We do have a comment in about Noelle Murray, I think, which I think she'll probably appreciate herself. Billy Cleary, she broke my heart a few times, scored on the last minute of the game in the AUL 5 years ago to equalise in the 90th minute, and then they ended up losing 3-2. Shells have done that so many times to so many teams. Billy, as always, we appreciate the contribution. We must have you on the show again soon. Always good to keep us in track anyway, at least Billy on that one. But she has done that to so many teams, Noelle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the general thing is, like, the Peamount one is the one that stands out to me, where the Madness 4-3 game in Tolka Park, the game that Noel King got sent off in, like, you're thinking at that stage, okay, Peamount are going to win the game. Shell's going to score twice late, but the Noel goal deep in injury time, man the bud, and a long ball forward, just bounces once, boom, into the top corner, and you're just thinking, Noel Murray, what have you done? And I've been lucky to commentate in a couple of them, and just the actual sheer excitement of actually when she does it, there's nothing more exhilarating. And like, it's the sort of player like that where you have to appreciate the likes of your Noelle Murrays, your Kylie Murphys, your Lindsay McKees, your Pearl Slatterys, your Karen Duggans, these sort of players, your Anya O'Gorman, your Steph Sambers, because it's going to be a while before we see some of these types of players again, of that stature.
In terms of final game, I think of last weekend was down in Carrick Park, Wexford FC 4, Sligo Rovers 0. Ciara Rossiter. It just seemed to be the weekend of 4-1. Sorry. It just seemed to be the weekend where apologies, it's Sligo Rovers. It seemed to be the weekend where just individual players just really stepped up. We see 2 goals from Delana Friesen down in Treaty. She was impressive. Amongst others, Jenna Slattery was brilliant in Galway, as well as most of the Galway side. Julianne Russell was unplayable at times. But Ciara Rossiter, she's done it week in, week out. She's always there when Wexford need her. Nice for them to get back.
I was close to my prediction last week. I said the game would either finish 1-1, which it looked like it was going to win when Kelly Crompton equalised, or I said our Wexford would win 4-0. But Ciara Roster, what a second half display. She just makes it look effortless. And the thing about her is that, like, she's one of the nicest people to meet as well. And when she goes on that form, there's not many defenders that will be able to sort of compete with her. I love watching when she's played against the likes of Jess Gargan, or she's played against the top rifles in the league, just to watch the absolute battle that she has. And she's as ferocious as anybody. But what a hat trick! The first goal, she does well to get the ball back after sort of running into a bit of trouble, and a lovely finish. The second goal is just a peach of a goal. And like, Ciara's somebody who we don't you realize when you're against her how good she is. And I'm sure if you speak to a lot of opposition players, they probably hate playing against her. You know, she's really, really quick. And considering the injuries that she's had over the years, if she had stayed completely healthy, you know, she'd be right up there with the top players in this league.
Absolutely. Looking forward, maybe before we do that, actually, we'll just take a quick look at the league table. Let me just find it here on the computer. But Galway, of course, lead the table from, here we go. Galway lead the table there from Shells, Peamount on 10 points. All those teams, of course, played 6 games. Athlone and Treaty on 8 points. They're in joint fourth, I suppose, almost identical records in terms of goals scored and everything. Won't edge it on, I suppose, alphabetical order. Cork City 1 point further behind, of course, beaten by Treaty last weekend. Bows on 6 points. Wexford still in that foot of the table despite that result at the weekend. 4 points for them alongside Shamrock Rovers. DLR Waves on 3. No wins for them yet either. And Sligo Rovers beaten at the weekend. They're still 2 points on the foot of the table. But it's nice to see, I suppose, such a competitive league. And particularly for me, the highlight of this is, while it's a plus to see lots of goals in games, to see teams actually managing to control opposition forwards for the most part. A lot of teams with less goals in games played, less than 1 goal a game, which is the sign of, I suppose, of a fairly mature league compared to what we would have seen maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when the likes of Kilkenny and even Cork and Treaty in recent seasons, and Sligo at times, have taken big beatings.
Yeah, but the scary thing is you also look at Galway scoring 18 goals and only conceding 2. The funny thing about it is, if you look in previous seasons, Galway's goals are probably an awful lot less than that in previous years. Like, if you look at look back to last year, over the 20 games last year, Galway only scored 29 goals over 20 games last year. You know, they've already scored 18 goals so far this season, and it's a big difference in terms of teams like that. But the thing is, and we have the conversation quite regularly, is the fact that some weekends you're coming in, there might be 7 goals scored over 5 games. There might be, you know, a lot less scored over. There, look, 29 goals in 20 games last year for Galway. Like, compare that to this year having 18 already. Like, that's a massive improvement. But I just think the fact that
they were Galway WFC. They're on this list.
WFC. But like, I think the fact of, you know, we're seeing a lot more close games. We're going to see a lot less scoring games. Like, sometimes we're seeing in games where it's a moment of magic. That's the difference between some sides. Yes, we're still going to see them quite big results, because realistically, if you look back 2 seasons ago, we've seen a 5-1 defeat for Shells against Peamount, like, where we've seen the big teams being beaten by a couple of goals. It can happen on its day. It's not going to happen as often now, which is a massive plus.
I think that's what I mean, is that those freak results still happen. They happen in the Premier League, but it's about not being a consistent thing where a team is getting by 7 or 8 goals every single week. It just makes a bit of a mockery of them taking part in the competition. Fixtures this weekend, though, plenty of action across the day. On Saturday, DLR Waves, they play Shells at 3 p.m. Shamrock Rovers, as we mentioned, visit Cork at 5 o'clock in Turner's Cross. Treaty United host the champions Peamount at 5 p.m. in the Markets Field in Limerick. Sligo Rovers and Bows. That's always been a tough clash between the two of them. They've met each other a lot over the last few seasons. That's 7 p.m. in the Showgrounds, and at Lone Town versus Wexford Town at 7:30. Game of the weekend for you?
Athlone and Wexford probably for me is probably the game of this weekend. Still a little bit undecided as to what to do this weekend. There's only the one game in the capital.
Travel a bit. Come down to Sligo for the weekend.
Yeah, if I wasn't going to Sweden in a couple of weeks, I'd 100% be looking at something like that. I think the next trip for me, I want to go to Galway. I want to try to get out a bit this second half of the season, just get to some different grounds. But I think realistically, that's Athlone game is probably the game of the week. It's probably the game of the weekend, and I think that's the one that will have the majority of the eyes. I'm intrigued for Cork and Shamrock Rovers. I'm really intrigued for that because the fact of can Cork bounce back if they can and put in a good performance. I think they'll run Shamrock Rovers close. If they get something out of it, I wouldn't be at all surprised. I think we haven't even mentioned it though, Breifne. I think the Treaty and Peamount game, if you go back to the cup game last year, finished 3-2 after extra time, where Treaty were unlucky and Peamount scored a late goal in normal time to equalise. That could be a cracker. It could be a cracker. And listen, I think we'll come next week probably looking at not an awful lot of goals scored again this weekend and a lot of tight games.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm going to finish up with one question. We've had another viewer, same viewer, I must add, send in a question for us. He wants to know your opinion on the selection process for the League of Ireland Team of the Week.
No comment.
I might take this one because I know nothing about it, but it appears to be, from the outside looking in, who scored and where can I fit them in on the pitch and who kept a clean sheet. And it's very... Now, I'm not putting down selections. Obviously, the people who are in it deserve to be.
I'll give you an interesting fact. The right side of the fence this week played on the left side of the fence this week.
I have no idea what you mean by that.
Kiva Keenan played on the left side of Shell's defence this week, but was put in on the right. I listen. It is what it is. It's always going to be a divisive thing. I think it's a talking point for everybody. Maybe we need to start a fan one of the week and just nearly drop a Google form or something just to get people to start talking about it. The one thing I do want to, I know I said I wanted to mention something tonight. The scandalous price for Ireland versus England tickets in Carrow Road, £40 for an adult's ticket, Breifne. £40 for one game.
I wouldn't have a bad word said about Norwich, to be honest, me being a Norwich City fan. But no, I was looking at it because I'm buying tickets tomorrow when they come out. And yeah, it wasn't lost on me. But at the same time, is that not where we should be getting our women's international games to?
Well, I think if you look at the cost of the French games, I think the French games, France away, I think it was between 7 and 18. Correct me wrong, could be wrong. 7 and 19 euro for the tickets. I actually have a ticket. I'll confirm in my thing. I think the Sweden tickets were about 12 euro. Like, I understand where they're coming from in terms of the Lionesses. It's a smaller stadium. That's probably why.
Yeah, I think it's 26,000 capacity. I think, or 27,000 capacity in Carrow Road, and it's going to be full. So why not charge supply and demand? And I think the market will decide if that's the right price or not based on whether the ground is full. And I think whatever they charge, they'll probably fill. Well, not whatever they charge, but they'll probably still fill it. So
I hate to say this because you're a Norwich City fan, but it's one of the worst stadiums to get.
You're Billy. Are you around for next week? Aaron's just been replaced. Actually, I haven't. This will probably just to go back to Billy's question, right? Because there's a tirade of text messages have come in from him since. But he's dead right. He says Julian Russell should have been in the team. I agree with him. I'm not going to bring them all up because I don't want to get him in trouble. He likes.
Well, I'll say this to you, right? Julian Russell is like a fine wine. She's just getting better and better and better every year.
Yeah,
like she's just quality. And a word for we haven't mentioned it, a word for Casey Howe of also winning the Player of the Month for April as well. Probably deserved. Good to see a spread of players that were nominated from different clubs, but I do agree with Billy. Julian Russell should have been in there.
Well, I'm just looking down through the list, and all bar I think 2 of them scored. Obviously, the goalkeeper. I think so. That to me, scoring a goal isn't necessarily the make and break of a game, but I just think people aren't watching.
Who's the goalkeeper again this week?
Jessica Berlin.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it probably should have been Rachel Kelly. Rachel Kelly. I know she was beaten from the Noel Murray goal, but Rachel Kelly was brilliant on Saturday. She must have pulled off 5 or 6 superb saves to keep her side in that game.
Well, I watched the Galway game, and I watched 4 or 5 games the weekend. I watched a lot. The first time in a long time I sat down and watched the whole day. No disrespect to Jessica Berlin, she didn't have a whole pile to do. Probably not in the running, in my opinion. I actually thought, ironically, Eve Badana had a decent enough game for on her side. She kept her side in the game for as long as humanly possible. Aaron, we have ran out of time about 20 minutes ago, so we might as well call it there. But we'll be back next week. Of course, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about. The return of the final round of the Avenir Sports Cup is in 10 days' time. We'll be chatting about that next week. You never know. We might even convince Billy Cleary to come on and give us his thoughts on all of these things he wants us to chat about. Aaron, as ever, it's been a pleasure. We'll wrap it up there, and we will be back next week with another show. Talk to you then.